Today I'm exploring a secluded hiking path where people have reported strange sightings, eerie whispers, and the overwhelming feeling of being watched. I swear since I started walking, I've had chills. All right, I just heard that right behind me. Did you guys hear that? Maybe just the wind, or maybe not. I don't like this. I'm getting out of here. Nope, not today. You've got to be kidding me. So yeah, it turns out that my stalker friend was just a squirrel. Happy April Fool's Day, guys. Have a good one. Thanks. Bye. Today I'm exploring a secluded hiking path. Hi everybody, so another story time video. This time it's gonna be on my adventure at a haunted cemetery. So I don't know why I did quotations because literally there was so much shit that happened. I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to end. Let's just kind of see where this video goes. So I don't even know how many years ago, like 10 years ago, maybe longer. Yeah, 10. We'll say 10. Like 10 years ago, me and my sister and a couple of her friends and our cousin. Wait, did our cousin go that time? I can't remember if my cousin went that time. I think my brother went. I can't remember. But no, my sister went. I'm going to tell you why I remember my sister going. So, we're bored. I mean, it's like 10 years ago. There wasn't really shit to do at the time. So we were like, what are we going to do? I'm like, I really want to go out to Bloods Point. Keep hearing all these stories about Bloods Point. There's a story about the road and the bridge that's kind of, it's not really by the cemetery, but people say it is. It's not. It's like down the road, a couple miles. So there is, I'm going to start with the bridge. We drove over the bridge. We didn't stay at the bridge. there's a story, I guess, that there was a witch that was all distraught and she hung her kids off the bridge. Plain and simple. Something about, I've heard this story, not this story, but I've heard about a school bus and kids like dying on the school bus, like it gets hit by a train and shit, whatever. This one is if you park on the bridge that you will roll. Well, it's on a incline, decline, whatever, depends on which side you're coming off of. So yeah, if you put your car in neutral, it's gonna fucking roll. Okay? Didn't care. Bloods Point Cemetery, though, there's a lot of stories regarding the cemetery and then the road that it's on, because it's called Bloods Point Road. There is a black car that will chase you. There's sightings of some old beat up truck that will chase you. Something about a guy with a pitchfork. There's just all these stories, right? I'm like, okay, let's go out to Bloods Point. So we drive out there, but you can't go to Bloods Point Cemetery. If you get caught at Bloods Point Cemetery, because there's been so many people that have went there and literally destroyed the fucking headstones and fucking, you know how people are. So you can't go there, and it was night. So I'm like, you know what, we're not going to park by the cemetery. What we're going to do is we are going to park down the road and then walk down there, right? Less inconspicuous is what I was thinking. There was a bunch of us though. We had a car full of people, okay? And we're walking down this road. It wasn't even Bloods Point. We were walking down like the crossroad. I don't even remember what the fuck the name of that road is. There's a road that goes across, because Bloods Point Cemetery is on the corner, okay, of Bloods Point Road and whatever the fuck this crossroad is. And there's a bunch of houses. It's farmland, whatever. We're walking down the road. And on the side of us over here, like we're walking on the side of the road, there's like a farm, and there's some horses, and no fucking shit, there was probably 6-7 horses. They literally lined up side by side and stood there and watched us walk by, and the only thing that moved was their heads. That was it. It's fucking creepy as hell, okay? Horses at night watching you walk down the road. They're all standing in line like that, and all that's moving is their heads as we're walking by. They're just watching us. So we're walking down this road. That was creepy as fuck. After we passed the horse farm or whatever the fuck it was, me and my sister was like, oh dude, we gotta pee. That's why I remember my sister was there. Like, dude, we gotta pee. We found this big ass bush, okay? And she went on one side behind it. I went on the other side behind. I mean, it was a fucking huge bush. And we peed, and we come out, and we start walking down the road again. This bush is going to come up again later, because I don't know what the fuck happened to that bush. It was not there no more. So anyways, we're walking down the road. We get to Bloods Point Cemetery, and I'm taking pictures with the cheap generic phone that I had at the time. It was not an iPhone. Some kind of Android, some kind of little cheap little phone, whatever. Taking pictures of the cemetery. I didn't want to go inside there because I'm already like, nope, I don't want something to follow us home. So if we go inside the cemetery, something's going to follow us home. So we're all standing outside of it, plus the gate's locked. You would have had to climb over the fucking fence to get in there. There's a big ass light in the middle of the cemetery. I don't know. I don't remember. I found all my pictures, and I am going to add them to the video and everything. Maybe I'll do like a voiceover, because I'm sure you guys will want to sit here and look at me for however long it takes me to tell this story. This one's not as long as the other one, but there's a lot of shit that fucking happens. So we're taking pictures, and I'm just like, I got this really uneasy feeling. I'm like, dude, we gotta go. We gotta fucking go. So we're there for maybe 10-15 minutes, right? Remember, we walked down the road miles. We walked miles down this road, okay? And I'm like, all right, we gotta go. We gotta go. I'm ready to go. I got a bad vibe. We gotta go. I'm all about vibes. So we start walking back down the crossroad that we had parked on, not Bloods Point. And we're walking down the road, and we seen the horses, and me and my sister's like, dude, where's that fucking bush that we pissed behind, dude? Where is this fucking bush? Bush is gone. That bush no longer existed. This big ass fucking bush, gone. Okay? Shit you not. It was not there no more. We're all like, dude, what the fuck? What happened to the bush? I mean, this big ass bush. It was after we seen the horses. So we should have seen it before we seen the horses again. Whatever. We're still walking down the road. We come across the horse farm again. Of course, all the horses line up in unison again, side by side, heads turning, watching us walk down the road. Fucking creepy shit. We get back to my car. We all get in. We seen a car miles down the road, right? We seen the headlights because it's night. I'm like, dude, hurry up, get in the fucking car. What if it's a fucking cop? We're gonna get in fucking trouble. So everybody gets in the car. We're driving down the fucking road. This car comes fucking flying up on us. And I'm like, dude, what do we do? What do we do? Do I pull over? Do I keep going? So I just kept going. We could see Rockford city lights, like the lights from the city for Rockford. And I'm like, dude, we're really fucking close. We're just gonna keep fucking going. We're not gonna pull over because we don't know who the fuck this is. It's not a cop. Can't really tell like what kind of make, model, what color, anything, right? It's fucking dark. And we're driving, and we get back into the city. Car turns off before we hit the city, so we didn't actually see anything. Fucking creepy. We get back home, and we're sitting there talking about what happened, you know, the horses, how, like, it was just this really creepy vibe at Bloods Point Cemetery, and I don't think it was the fact that it was just dark as fuck. Like, it was dark. But just some creepy feeling. Okay, so we're all talking about that, and I'm looking through my phone, and I'm looking at the pictures I took. And I don't even remember how many pictures I took, but I'm looking through the pictures, and I'm like, Heather, that's my sister. I'm like, Heather, look at this fucking picture. She's like, what? I was like, dude, there's like a blue light. Was there a blue light out there? She's like, no, there was no blue light out there. So I'm like, okay. I zoom it in, and I'm looking at it and shit, and I'm like, that looks creepy as fuck. So I'm looking at the picture, I'm zooming it in, and the one kind of looks like a hand like this. Okay, you're gonna see it. I'm gonna fucking post all this shit. Probably gonna fucking cover some of this. I don't know. We'll see. But it looks like a hand going like this, and then the other one, like, it just kind of looked like a little ball of light. And I zoom in on it, and it can't really make out what it is. I think it kind of looks like a head, but it's by one of the, like, the headstones and shit that's not fucked up. A lot of them were all fucked up and crumbled on the ground and shit. So I still have not been back to Bloods Point. I mean, it's been like 10 years. I probably won't go back to Bloods Point. I might drive by. There's no way in hell I'll do what I did last time, though. I'm not parking miles down the road and walking to this fucking cemetery. I'm literally gonna drive by, roll down the fucking window, and be like, yep, it's there, and keep it moving. After that, though, I kind of started some shit, taking them all out with me to Bloods Point, because it was my sister, pretty sure my brother was there, my sister's friends, my cousin. I'm pretty sure my cousin was there. If he wasn't there with me that time, then my sister and brother must have told him what happened, and then he was intrigued and wanted to go out there. So they went back out there, I don't know, wasn't that same night. I don't know if it was like days later, weeks later, whatever. They went back out there. And instead of heeding my warning, they proceeded to go inside the cemetery, and my cousin pissed on a fucking headstone. Yeah, you fucking heard me. My cousin pissed on a headstone. Whatever the fuck he pissed off followed him back to our house, and they all came to my house, and they're like, oh yeah, we went back out there and we took pictures, but we didn't see no blue light. That was like the main point. Like, there was no blue light. So anyways, they come back to my house, they're telling me about, nothing happened. I'm like, okay, it's cool. Maybe it's just, me. Me being me. I'm an intuitive, so I definitely feel vibes. I definitely feel energies and shit. Shortly after they went back out there and came back, and they were sitting in my house and everything, like the next night, I'm sitting in my apartment, and I just had this really bad feeling, right? And I'm just like, that's really weird. I've never had a weird, bad feeling in my own apartment. So It ended up getting really bad. Um, I felt like somebody was squeezing my heart and I couldn't breathe. Um, I actually went to the emergency room because I had no idea what the fuck was going on. They told me I was having a panic attack for no reason whatsoever. I wasn't stressed about nothing. I wasn't worried about nothing. Just having a panic attack for no reason. Okay? This proceeded to happen several more times where I had that same feeling. And there was like one or two other times I actually went to the hospital because I was seriously concerned. It just got to this feeling that overwhelming dread when I was in my apartment. I didn't want to be there. I told my dad. My dad's like, well, I'm going to bless the house. I'm like, okay, Dad, that's cool. So he went through and he blessed the whole house because my parents lived downstairs. I lived upstairs in apartments and shit. They were all separated. Blah, blah, blah. My grandparents owned the apartment building. My dad blessed the whole house. Instantly, everything felt better. I didn't feel that feeling no more. It was gone. Haven't had no more. Can't say I haven't had no more. I've had panic attacks since then, but I think that's what kind of started it. Panic attacks haven't been that bad though. And they usually come at a time where I'm stressed or overwhelmed or something. And say whatever you want. They can call it a panic attack. I'm gonna call it that my cousin pissed on somebody's fucking headstone, pissed them off. They followed him home, and they latched to me because I was the first place they came to. Oh yeah, back to my story. So I stopped having panic attacks. Everything kind of went back to fucking normal, and honestly, I don't want to go back to Blood's Point. That is my Blood's Point story. So, on that note, thank you so much for watching. This is going to be my last ghost story time of my own stories. I start my new job on Tuesday, so I'm going to start having money coming in so I can start traveling. I am going to probably do one more, maybe two more videos that are not travel related, so keep an eye out for that. But anyways, if you guys like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos on my crazy adventures, subscribe. And if you have any suggestions on crime, paranormal, conspiracies, I do want to do a UFO video, which I'm excited about. Cryptids, anything like that. Anything paranormal, in that realm, I am intrigued about. I love the medical field. I don't want to do videos on the medical field. I'm not an expert, but I love watching medical shit too. But I'm also in the medical field. So, but yeah, if you have any suggestions, leave me a comment. Give me suggestions. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with criticism. It's okay. That's how I get better. I'm really shooting for weekly videos on Fridays. That's why I'm doing this one tonight at 10:30. That's on. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys in the next one. Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today's video is on Camp Grant and the Little Girl Lost. The Camp Grant Museum and Command Post Restaurant is a treasure trove of interesting history told through actual artifacts of the men and women who served at Camp Grant. It is owned by Stanley and Yolanda Weisensel. They have spent many years scouring the area on a quest to build a memorial to the people who traveled through this area on their way to serve our country in World Wars I and II. The place is fascinating enough on its own, but the Wiesenthals are gems themselves. Yolanda is quite a storyteller and has spent many hours researching the whole area that once was Camp Grant. The construction for Camp Grant began in July of 1917, and by November of that year, 1,100 buildings had been constructed. It was designed to be a training site for infantry, engineers, machine gunners, and artillery. Both enlisted men and officers were trained there. It was virtually a small city and even had its own fire department and police force. It also included a base hospital, a photography studio, a movie theater, and a parade ground. It totaled over 5,000 acres. In its peak time, July 1918, Camp Grant supported a total of 50,543 officers and enlisted men. The fall of 1918 brought a new commandment to Camp Grant. Colonel Charles B. Hagedorn had almost a spotless career in the armed services. He graduated from West Point on June 14, 1889, and returned as a drawing instructor. Hagedorn also served in Manila. It was here that, according to the newspapers, Charles experienced bitter fighting. The only spot in his respectable career was when Hagedorn was assigned to the position as a military attaché in Petrograd, Russia. Charles requested a transfer from the position in 1914, citing health issues. The government denied his request, and Charles left anyway, stating later that he needed medical care that was not available in Manila. Charles Hagedorn was mildly disciplined after his return, and soon the incident was forgotten. Hagedorn became the commandant of Camp Grant in September 1918. Shortly after the new commandment arrived in the fall of 1918, the devastating Spanish flu hit the Rockford area. This was a worldwide epidemic that killed millions. Hundreds of thousands of people died in the United States, and Rockford was hit very hard. The supposed cause of the massive spreading of this disease was the soldiers themselves. Looking back, it is no surprise that Camp Grant, with so many men in such close quarters, was devastated by the aggressive onslaught of the influenza. The first case was reported on September 23, 1918. 3 days later, there were over 700 cases reported, and by the end of the month, over 4,000 cases were reported. Not much could be done to help the patients who came down with this dreaded disease. It swept quickly through the camp, and there were some 24-hour periods when over 100 men died. Within 9 days, 1,000 men had perished, and within 2 weeks the number had swelled to over 2,000 dead. By early October, Colonel Hagedorn was showing signs of the stress from the massive loss of his men. He had suffered from insomnia for years, but at this time it became severe. Other officers who shared a house with him stated later that they heard him pacing and talking to himself at all hours of the night. On October 7, 1918, Hagedorn was heard to say, "My God, but these deaths were appalling." The next morning, Colonel Hagedorn was found dead in his bed. Though all the soldiers were told that it was nervous exhaustion from the strain of all the deaths at the camp, the newspapers from all over the country stated the truth. Charles Hagedorn had shot himself in the head. There were some people who speculated, however, that maybe it was not suicide at all. This was explored in a fictional book written by Carl Brown titled No Taps for Charlie. Brown apparently thought that Colonel Hagedorn was murdered, though his theory has never been proven. Within days of Colonel Hagedorn's death, the influenza outbreak began to slow, and by the end of October it was considered to be controlled by the camp. According to psychics Sarah Boker and Paul Smith, Colonel Hagedorn is one of the remaining spirits at the camp. His presence is very strong in every part of that building, and therefore it is not surprising that he had been seen and heard by visitors. Both Sarah and Paul think that he is still there trying to protect what he considers to be his boys. They also state that he has a fondness for Yolanda and Stanley. They have told the soldiers stories and ensured that these men would not be forgotten. After the war, the camp was used for a variety of purposes, including a temporary training facility for the Illinois National Guard. The camp was reopened for World War II and in August 1943 began to house German POWs, most of who were members of the German Afrika Korps, or U-boat sailors. These men were paid to work in the nearby fields and canneries to help ease a shortage of men in the local area. Later, many of these prisoners would claim that they were treated very well at the camp. Some of them were drawn back to this area to live after the war. Besides being filled with interesting artifacts, the museum also has many spirits that linger within its walls. The owners and waitstaff have had many experiences that they cannot explain. They have had items moved around, seen moving balls of light, felt someone touch them, and seen full-bodied apparitions. Right from the beginning, Yolanda knew there was something different about this place. She would set the tables up for the day shift each night before leaving. Upon their return in the morning, the place settings would be moved all around. Sometimes it would be all the salt shakers, and the next it might be all the silverware. There was no rhyme or reason to it. It just seemed like something or someone was trying to get her attention. One waitstaff was standing at the wait station before opening one morning and noticed some movement out of the corner of her eye. She froze and slowly turned her head. She could see a soldier standing an estimated 6 feet away from her. He was in uniform and he appeared solid. As she turned her head farther to look at him fully, he disappeared. There was another occasion when Yolanda's daughter Toni was at the restaurant after hours with a gentleman who was working on the computer. He needed to take a break to use the restroom, which was in the main part of the dining area. He was returning to the office area when he saw a rather large man with an apron step through a doorway from one of the exhibits rooms. The man, who was very solid, looked toward the computer man and scowled, as though he was not happy to see him. The computer man returned to the office and asked Toni about who else might be in the building at that time of night. When Toni assured him that they were alone in the building, he shared what he saw with her. They left the building shortly after that. Yolanda has had other experiences in the diner. Once, she was finishing up for the night and was leaning over her office chair typing on the computer when she felt a nudge on her shoulder. She assumed it was Stanley, letting her know he was ready to go. When she turned to speak to him, there was no one there. She went into the dining room and found Stanley sitting at one of the tables. When she asked him if he was just in the office, he stated that he had been at the table the whole time. Even with earlier experiences, Yolanda was not convinced that the place might be haunted. But that all changed one evening. She was standing in the dining area talking to someone when she turned to look down the hallway past the bathrooms. Yolanda was astonished to see a young man dressed in a white apron run across the hallway from the Rockford room. He was laughing and turned to look over his shoulder as if someone was chasing him. He seemed to be having a good time, Yolanda stated later. The staff hear news stories on almost a daily basis from families whose loved ones served at the camp or were held there as POWs during World War II. Yolanda received letters, photographs, and other artifacts. Once she even received a placemat from the first Thanksgiving dinner served there. Yolanda and Stanley have worked very hard to ensure that this little piece of Rockford's history is not forgotten, through the stories they share and the mementos and photographs they have collected. Psychics who have visited the place all feel that this was not gone unnoticed by the spirits that linger in this place. It seems to work almost as a ghost magnet, and they appear drawn to that place. Perhaps they are waiting to have their stories told. All the psychics agree that the spirits are grateful to Yolanda and Stanley for honoring their memories. Yolanda is very comfortable with the idea of the spirits staying around as long as they stay at the restaurant. I always say goodnight when I leave. I also tell them they can't come home with me. You stay here, says Yolanda. So that was the first story. And if you remember in my last video, I stated that these two stories were like in the same vicinity. So I'm going to start with this story. The story is called Little Girl Lost. There is a warehouse on the southeast side of Rockford that has an unusual problem. The problem isn't with wiring or plumbing. this warehouse has a ghost. Actually, it has a couple of them. But the most disturbing one is the ghost of a little girl. No one can remember when they started hearing stories about this little girl, but all agree it has been years. The little girl is seen all over the area, but mainly near the intersection of Samuelson Road and 6th Street. Yolanda Weisensell, owner of Command Post Restaurant and Camp Grant Museum, states that she has heard quite a bit about the child. The little girl is described as being between 5 to 8 years old, with long, light brown hair, and she wears a dress with stockings and boots. She seems to be from the 1910s to 1920s era. I have heard several stories. Someone told me they can remember a little girl who got hit by a train back when the train tracks ran down 6th Street, Weisensell states. There is one person who is reluctant to talk about the little girl, however. He works in the previously mentioned warehouse, and we will call him Sam. I was moving some pipes in the warehouse. I would bend over and pick up a pipe and move it to its new location, explained Sam. There is a door that has a window set in the top half, right across from where Sam was working. And what he saw in the reflection of the window startled him so much that he no longer likes to be in the warehouse at night by himself. When Sam stood up with a pipe, he caught his reflection in the glass of the door. He had seen that same window at least a dozen times, but this time something was different. When Sam looked into the glass, he saw more than his own reflection. Standing next to him was the reflection of a little girl. She was about 6 or 7 years old, had light brown hair, and was wearing a dress. Even more alarming to Sam, the girl reached out for his hand, and just as he saw the little girl's hand touch his whole right arm went cold. Sam quickly looked next to him. There was no one there. Sam turned to look back into the window, and the little girl was still there. Sam is not a man to frighten easily. He's a large man, 6 feet, 3 inches or so, and probably 230 pounds. But he shared with me that he is Samoan, and his Pacific Island people are very superstitious about the dead. The Pacific people believe that objects that reflect one's image are a portal to the spirit realm. To steal the souls of the living, evil spirits sometimes take on the appearance of loved ones who have passed away. While others might have been curious and even possibly thrilled that the little girl had contacted them, Sam was not. He does not want to be disrespectful toward the little girl, but he really doesn't ever want to see her again. Other people have seen the same little girl outside the building, skipping along both 6th Street and Samuelson roads, and picking the wildflowers that grow up along the roadside. They claim that she is just as solid as any other living little girl. The only thing odd about her is she is dressed in clothes from another time. Despite research into the train accidents in that particular area and reviewing news reports on a child who died at that intersection, I have been unable to find the little girl's identity. She remains as elusive as her reason for lingering here. Thank you for watching today's video. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. What paranormal or crime-related mystery would you like to see next? I hope you all have a great day. Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today's video is on Geraldine Bourbon. I am so excited about today's video. I actually get to do what I've been wanting to do this whole time. I passed my RMA test today, so I actually have more time now that I don't have school, so I can start uploading more frequently and actually going out and doing what I've been wanting to do this whole time, which is actually going to places and learning about the history and sharing what I find out with you guys. This story I actually got out of a book that I bought. It's called Rockford Paranormal, and it's about a lady that actually lives in Rockford, where I'm from and where I live currently, and she shares stories that she finds. So you guys are going to hear me say like it's not actually me, it's her. Her name is Kathy. I don't remember what her whole name was. I will definitely link that down in the description box, though. And I hope you guys enjoy what I've been wanting to do this whole time. And thank you for watching. The Terrible Tragedy of Geraldine Bourbon. My family bought the old farmhouse on School Street in 1988, knowing nothing about the violent incident that had occurred there. This was our first house, and it seemed like our dream home. It was big enough for our 4 children, had a big yard, and was 3 blocks away from my husband's elderly father. The sale and the move went so smoothly, it seemed as though it was meant to be. Almost immediately, strange things started happening. We would put items down, and they would show up in a totally different area. It was easy to convince ourselves it was the kids moving the items. We had 4 children under the age of 5, and our lives were very busy. There were certain times it was too much to ignore. The paper towel rack in the kitchen had a habit of emptying by itself. It was always when I placed a new roll on the rack. It would unroll until all the paper was on the floor. The lights would also flicker, and the television would turn on all by itself. This usually happened after everyone was upstairs in bed. We would suddenly be awakened by the noises from the television down on the first floor. Every once in a while, we would get the feeling of being watched. We knew from the woman we purchased the house from that a family member had died in the house from natural causes. The house was built in 1913, and many families had lived there. We always reasoned that the identity of our ghost was one of the former family members. We had several pets over the years, and at times they would behave strangely. They would always seem to watch something over our heads. The cats would hunker down and emit a low growling sound. It was disconcerting to see them react to something we couldn't see. One of our small dogs seemed especially affected. We had one particular friend, Nathan, whom this dog did not like. Nathan was a teenager who helped us with yard work and who I tutored while my children were in school. The dog would growl at Nathan and bite his shoes. Once we were sitting in the dining room and Nathan was getting frustrated because the dog would not leave him alone. The dog kept going under the table and biting his shoes, and Nathan would shake him off and tell him to stop. The dog finally backed off and left the room. A few minutes went by and we heard this horrible howling noise. It was coming from the upstairs of the house. There were 4 bedrooms on the second floor, and the master bedroom had a hook and eye up toward the top of the door to keep the children away from the guns that my husband stored in the closet. Nathan and I followed the howling and realized it was coming from that room. We unlocked the door, and the dog came rushing out and ran down the stairs. We never solved the mystery of how the dog got locked into that room. Nathan was so shaken by the incident that he left immediately. I was constantly remodeling the old farmhouse and had problems with electrical tools. I would be taking a break in another room and the tools would turn on by themselves. It was frustrating because it would never happen when I was in the room, only when I stepped away for a minute. One time when I was working with a palm sander, I left for a moment and the tool turned on. By this time, I was getting agitated, so I unplugged it from the wall. I went back into the kitchen, and as soon as I rounded the corner, I heard the sander turn on again. I threw the sander away. The turning point was an incident with a baby bottle. I ran a daycare in the home, so my youngest child had her name on her bottles to keep them separate from the other children's. I spell her name Aryn, pronounced Aaron. One night, I put Aaron in her crib in the room where the 2 youngest children slept. I gave her a bottle and went back downstairs to finish cleaning up from dinner. A little while later, she started to cry. I went to check on her and noticed the bottle was gone. I looked all over the room for the bottle. I didn't find it, so I went back down the stairs and made her a fresh one. I remember thinking it was odd the way it just disappeared, seemingly into thin air. Life went on, and the children got older. We were still remodeling the house and began the process on the second floor in the room that was the youngest girl's bedroom. It had old wiring, and the plaster had some holes, so we decided to tear the room out completely. I was breaking down the plaster and tearing out the lath boards. The process was going smoothly, but messily, when I came across something odd. Behind the plaster and the lath boards, inside the wall, was a pink baby bottle. The baby bottle had Aaron's name on it. After that, I couldn't ignore what was happening any longer. I started to research the house. I knew some of the neighbors on the block had lived in their houses for many years. I interviewed them, and they told me that someone had been killed in our house. They thought it had happened in the summer of 1958. I went to the Rockford Public Library and started to go through the microfilm files for the summer of 1958. I found nothing. I wasn't sure quite what to do, so I decided to start in the beginning of the year, just in case. I'll never forget the feeling that swept over me when I came to the article telling of Geraldine Bourbon's murder on January 18, 1958. There on the front page of the newspaper was my house. The story told the horrible deaths of Geraldine and Lawrence. I felt the hairs rise on the back of my neck. Geraldine was just an average woman who lived in Rockford during the 1950s. I first came across her name in the newspaper article when I was researching our house on School Street. I immediately noticed a few similarities. We had both lived in the same house, and we were both mothers of small children. We both had family members who were in the armed services. Geraldine was married to an Army officer, and my father was in the Navy. Both of us had moved around because of this. We both had struggled with issues in our marriages. There were some differences between us, though. I would leave the house on the west side of Rockford, and I would live to see 29 years old. Geraldine would do neither. Geraldine's childhood was easy to trace. She was one of 4 daughters born to Maxine and Percy Tanacor. Geraldine was born in Wisconsin in 1929. Their family was close-knit, and their other children stayed in proximity to their parents, but not Geraldine. She was not content to live in the same small town all of her life. Geraldine married twice. She was very young when she married the first time. They had 2 children and were not married very long when they divorced. Geraldine's 2 children stayed with their father in Wisconsin. Lawrence Ray Bourbon's life was not as easy to trace as Geraldine's. He was the only boy in the family. He and his sisters, Florence Fay, were twins. For some reason, the family went to St. Louis in 1929, but Florence and Lawrence were boarded with other family across the state back in their hometown. There was no reason given for this or information on how long the family was separated. Lawrence and Geraldine met and were married in 1951, when Geraldine was 21. He was in the Army, and though he was not traditionally what you would call handsome, his uniform made him attractive. Geraldine must have thought that traveling with her husband would bring the adventure she sought. By September 1957, the couple had 2 children and were living in Germany. Lawrence was suffering from mental health issues and had a drinking problem. These issues eventually led to his undesirable discharge from the Army. The family left Germany and moved to Rockford, where some of Geraldine's family lived. The couple moved into a little apartment on Grant Street and then moved again to Court Street. Lawrence started a job in construction, and Geraldine stayed at home with the children. The couple struggled, and these challenges led to issues in the marriage. Geraldine was close to her sister, Arlene, and she shared her concerns about her marriage. Geraldine stated that Lawrence was violent, and she had become very frightened of him. On January 9, 1958, there was an altercation, and Geraldine was terrified enough to finally leave Lawrence. She took the children, filed for divorce, and moved in with Arlene and her husband, William. Geraldine told the court that Lawrence had become increasingly violent, and in his latest attack, he struck not only her, but also their 4-year-old daughter, Kathleen. Lawrence was apologetic and tried several times to reconcile, but Geraldine remained at her sister and brother-in-law's house on School Street. On January 17, 1958, Lawrence tried once again to reconcile by calling Geraldine and begging her to take him back. She again refused. The 2 sisters were sitting in the kitchen of the School Street house around 11 o'clock that Friday morning. One of Arlene's young sons wanted to go outside to play for a while. Arlene bundled him up, and he left the house through the back door. Neither of the women noticed that the boy didn't lock the door as he left. A few moments later, the peace of the morning was shattered. The door flew open, and Lawrence stood there in the doorway, shouting that he was going to kill her and waving a gun. Geraldine ran around the corner into the living room. Arlene saw her chance to get help and ran next door to the auto body shop. Thomas Guzzo was the owner of the shop, and he stepped out of his office as Arlene came inside screaming for help. Guzzo listened to her story and then headed for the phone to call the police. Arlene realized the children were all still in the house and bravely headed back next door to get them to safety. As she left the garage, she looked up to the second-story window to see her sister waving frantically and pounding on the bedroom window. One of Arlene's sons was upstairs during the altercation, and she was frantic for his safety. As she hurried to get the other children out of the house, she screamed to him to get to the bathroom and lock the door. The evidence would show that Lawrence initially attacked Geraldine in the living room. Arlene's children had scattered, and the only witness left was Kathleen, Geraldine's 4-year-old daughter. Little Kathleen told police that Lawrence was shouting and hitting her mother. Lawrence then shot Geraldine in the back of her head. Geraldine ran up the stairs to the bedroom, trying to get away from him. Unfortunately, there was no escape. Lawrence caught up with Geraldine in the bedroom and shot her a second time. Her wounds proved too much for her, and she fell dead. Lawrence caught her and placed her gently on the bed. The police arrived in record time and saw Lawrence hanging halfway out of the front upstairs window. They headed to the back of the house after first trying the front door. A shot rang out just as they burst through the door. Lawrence had stretched out on the bed next to his wife and put the pistol under his chin. When he pulled the trigger, he sealed their fates forever. Lawrence loved Geraldine too much to let her leave him, and the energy created by this last selfish act continues to resonate throughout the whole house. I visited the house recently with a psychic. The psychic agreed that Lawrence and Geraldine are still there. You can feel the tension all around the house. It breaks my heart to think of Geraldine still trapped there, reliving her last terrifying moments. The thought of Lawrence still there, waiting to feed on someone's anger and fear is terrifying. He had been in that house for 10 years by then, and I knew that as long as we stayed there, we would always be part of that struggle between Geraldine and Lawrence. I also wondered how that struggle between them affected my family. This all took place before the paranormal got so popular. There were no investigation teams in Rockford then. There was no one to offer advice to homeowners on what to do when you suspect that your house might have a ghost. I decided to move. It was the best decision I ever made. Geraldine's story touched me and changed my life. I started to research other local stories about the paranormal. I feel almost compelled to share these of other places and families that had similar experiences. Thank you for watching today's video. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. What paranormal or crime-related mystery would you like to see next? I hope you all have a good day.